Halston was born Roy Halston Frowick on April 23, 1932 in Des Moines, Iowa. He started designing hats for his sister as a young boy after being taught to sew by his mother. His family called him by his middle name Halston to avoid confusion with his uncle Roy. After graduating from high school in 1950, Halston attended Indiana University for one semester, and in 1952 he moved to Chicago. There he worked as a fashion merchandiser at the upscale chain department store Carson Peary Scott while attending night courses at the School of Art Institute of Chicago. Soon after, he met Andre Basel, a hairdresser who owned a prestigious salon at the Ambassador Hotel. The pair connected romantically, and Basel was so impressed by Halston's millinery skills, he set up a display of his hats in the salon. When Basel opened his Boulevard salon on North Michigan Avenue, he offered Halston half the space for display. It was at this point he started using his middle name instead of his first name in a professional capacity. In 1957, their relationship ended, and Halston moved to New York to take a design position with the respected milliner Lily Daché. A year later, he moved to Bergdorf Goodman, where he worked with what he called an incredible clientele. Halston traveled to Europe with the store's buyers and attended shows of leading Paris couture designers, including his favorite, Cristobal Balenciaga. In 1958, Halston was introduced to the designer Charles James, who would become his mentor and his greatest influence throughout his career. The relationship was tumultuous, as James was notoriously melodramatic, often calling Halston a thief and a copycat, even going so far as to write a piece for Metropolis magazine accusing Halston of plagiarizing his work. Still, despite the trouble, Halston claimed that Charles James would always be one of his heroes. Halston first became an internationally renowned name when he created the pillbox hat that Jackie Kennedy wore for her husband's inauguration in 1961. That was not enough to revive the diminishing millinery industry, as women abandoned hats in favor of bouffant hair. In 1966, Bergdorf Goodman introduced the first clothing collection by Halston, which was created to bridge the gap between couture and ready-to-wear. The collection was designed to look younger than traditional made-to-order clothes, with higher quality than typical ready-to-wear. 2 years later, Halston established his own company to make couture clothes. Halston had an enormous influence on fashion as the 70s began, when he helped bury the hippie, flower child, anti-establishment look of the 60s. He introduced more sophisticated clothes that modern women were ready for. The revolution was over. "Do you see that?" he asked, peeking through a curtain at the audience dressed in long peasant skirts and jangling jewelry before he showed his fall collection in 1971. "That is all finished. We're on to something different." Halston's first big success was the classic shirt dress in ultra suede, an imitation leather material made in Japan that the designer referred to as leatherette. About 50,000 of the dresses were sold, and ultra suede became for many years a fashion staple. Halston sold his label in 1973 to the industrialist Norton Simon for $16 million in stock. His fame skyrocketed through the 70s as he pioneered quintessential disco fashion as a regular guest at Studio 54. He famously hobnobbed with celebrities like Liza Minnelli, Elizabeth Taylor, Mick Jagger, and Andy Warhol. In 1978, Halston moved his offices, workrooms, and custom salon to the 21st floor of the Olympic Tower. With a view overlooking the spires of St. Patrick's Cathedral and a red carpet woven with double H's, it was a setting fit for a superstar. Halston also changed his work habits. Instead of arriving at his office at 8 a.m. and staying until midnight, he would stay at Studio 54 until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and arrive at work around noon. Halston signed an agreement with JCPenney in 1982 to design lower-priced clothes with the hopes of democratizing fashion and dressing all of America. His associates said that he had taken on too much and that he should at least have hired more people to help him design. Bergdorf Goodman, the store that gave him his start more than a quarter century earlier, dropped his collection because of the penny connection, and his business began to disintegrate. Struggling with addiction issues and a mounting workload, Halston lost control of his brand and his name by 1984. He retreated from the limelight and in 1988 was diagnosed with HIV. He left New York and moved to San Francisco, dying from AIDS just 2 years later. Since his death, many have made efforts to revive the brand, including Sarah Jessica Parker. In 2019, Excel Brands entered into a licensing agreement with Group JS International to produce and distribute sportswear and dresses under the Halston label and dresses under the Halston Heritage label. This product is currently distributed in premium retailers including Neiman Marcus, Saks, and Bloomingdale's. Halston's legacy continues on as young designers like Michael Halpern cite him as a major influence.